Hello everybody, welcome to the Praetorian. This is Roger Hanson, and today I am going to be doing another reading from my Facebook notes on the history of global warming / climate change. I did this, or I made this note on Facebook on September the 24th, 2014, and I had it on here, but now I'm trying to change my notes on Facebook over to video form. So after I do this, I'm going to end up deleting the notes because I no longer wish to use my notes on Facebook anymore. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start the reading, and here we go. History of global warming, climate change. In the 1950s, Callender's claims provoked a few scientists to look into the question with improved techniques and calculations. What made that possible was a sharp increase of government funding, especially from military agents with Cold War concerns about the weather and the seas. The new studies showed that, contrary to earlier crude estimates, carbon dioxide could indeed build up in the atmosphere and should bring warming. Crude estimates. Carbon dioxide should indeed build up in the atmosphere and should bring warming. Painstaking measurements drove home the point in 1960 by showing that the level of the gas was in fact rising year by year. The mass media, to the limited extent they covered the issue, were confused, sometimes predicting a balmy globe with coastal areas flooded as the ice caps melted, sometimes warning of the prospect of a catastrophic new ice age. Study panels, first in the U.S. and then elsewhere, began to warn that one or another kind of future climate change might pose a severe threat. The only thing most scientists agreed on was that they scarcely understood the climate system, and much more research was needed. Research activity did accelerate, including huge data gathering schemes that mobilized international fleets of oceanographic ships and orbiting satellites. Greatly improved computer models began to suggest how such jumps could happen. For example, through a change in the circulation of ocean currents. Experts predicted droughts, storms, rising sea levels, and other disasters. A few politicians began to suspect there might be a public issue here. However, the modelers had to make many arbitrary assumptions about clouds and the like, and reputable scientists disputed the reliability of the results. Others pointed out how little was known about the way living ecosystems interact with climate and the atmosphere. They argued, for example, over the effects of agriculture and deforestation in adding or subtracting carbon dioxide from air. One thing the scientists agreed on was the need for more coherent research program. But the research remained disorganized and funding grew only in irregular surges. The effort was dispersed among many different scientific fields, each with something different to say about climate change. One unexpected discovery was that the level of certain other gases was rising, which would add seriously to global warming. Some of these gases also degraded the atmosphere's protective ozone layer, and the news inflamed public worries about the fragility of the atmosphere. Moreover, by the late 1970s, global temperatures had begun to rise again. Many climate scientists had become convinced that the rise was likely to continue as greenhouse gases accumulated. By around 2000, some predicted an unprecedented global warming would become apparent. Their worries first caught wide public attention in the summer of 1988, the hottest on record till then. Most since then have been hotter. An international meeting of scientists warned that the world should take active steps to cut greenhouse gas emissions. The response was vehement. I've always had a hard time saying that word. Vehement. Corporations and individuals who opposed all government regulations began to spend many millions of dollars on lobbying, advertising, and reports that mimicked scientific publications in an effort to convince people that there was no problem at all. Environmental groups, less wealthy but more enthusiastic, helped politicize the issue with urgent cries of alarm. But the many scientists' uncertainties and the sheer complexity of climate made room for limitless debate over what actions, if any, governments should take. Scientists intensified their research, organizing programs on an international scale. Was the global temperature rise due to an increase in the sun's activity? Solar activity began to decline, but the temperatures soared faster than ever. Did computer models reproduce the present climate only because they were tweaked until they matched it, making them worthless for calculating a future climate change? Improved models successfully predicted the temperature cooling due to a huge volcanic explosion in 1991 and passed many other tests. In particular, the models could now reproduce in detail the pattern of warming, changes in rainfall, etc., actually observed in different regions in the world over the past century. Nobody had been able to build a model that matched the historical record and that did not show significant warning when greenhouse gases were added. The physics of clouds and pollution remained too complex to work out exactly, and modeling teams that made different assumptions got somewhat different results. Most of them found a warming of around 3 degrees Celsius when the carbon dioxide level doubled late in the 21st century. But some found a rise of 2 degrees Celsius, or perhaps a bit less, a costly but manageable warming. Others calculated a 5 degrees Celsius rise, or even more, an unparalleled catastrophe. Meanwhile, striking news came from studies of ancient climates recorded in Arctic ice cores. For hundreds of thousands of years, carbon dioxide and temperature has been linked. Anything that caused one of the pair to rise or fall had caused a rise or fall in the other. It turned out that the doubling of carbon dioxide had always gone along with a 3 degrees Celsius temperature rise, give or take a degree or two. a striking confirmation of the computer models and entirely independent evidence. The world's governments had created a panel to give them the most reliable possible advice as negotiated among thousands of climate experts and officials. By 2001, this Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, the IPCC, managed to establish a consensus phrased so cautiously with scarcely any expert or government representative dissented. They announced that although the climate system was so complex that scientists would never reach complete certainty, it was much more likely than not that our civilization faced severe global warming. At that point, the discovery of global warming was essentially completed. Scientists knew the most important things about how the climate could change during the 21st century. How the climate would actually change now depended chiefly on what policies humanity would choose for its greenhouse gas emissions. Since 2001, greatly improved computer models and an abundance of data of many kinds strengthened the conclusion that human emissions are very likely to cause serious climate change. The IPCC conclusions were reviewed and endorsed by the national science academies of every major nation, from the United States to China, along with leading scientific societies, and indeed virtually every organization that could speak for a scientific consensus. Specialists, meanwhile, improved their understanding of some less probable but more severe possibilities. On the one hand, a dangerous change in ocean circulation seemed unlikely in the next century or two. On the other hand, there were signs of disintegrating ice sheets could rise sea levels faster than most scientists had expected. Worse, new evidence suggests that the warning was itself starting to cause changes that would generate still more warning. In 2007, the IPCC reported that scientists were more confident than ever that humans were changing the climate. Although only a small fraction of the predicted warming had happened so far, effects were already becoming visible in some regions. More deadly heat waves, stronger floods, and droughts. Heat-related changes in the ranges and behaviors of sensitive species, but the scientists had not been able to narrow the range of possibilities. Depending on what steps people took to restrict emissions, by the end of the century, we could expect the planet's average temperature to rise somewhere between 1.4 to 6 degrees Celsius. That's 2.5 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Some people feared that the IPCC was too conservative. They insisted on emergency measures to avoid the risk of catastrophe if temperatures rose to the upper end of the projected range or even beyond. Others insisted that the IPCC was wholly mistaken. There was no need to worry. They pointed to a minority of scientists, scarcely any of them known for contributions to climate science, who held to the old conviction that human activity was too feeble to sway natural systems. Distrust of the climate experts was encouraged by corporations and political interests that opposed any government interference in the economy. However, the scientists who had been predicting for decades that by 2000 the world would be significantly warmer were now obviously correct. Science reporters, business leaders, government advisors, and others increasingly believed them. An ever larger number of individual corporate entities and government agencies at every level decided that something had to be done. They found that effective steps could be taken at surprisingly little cost, and many began to take them. Alright, so right here I had a lot of videos that I had posted down below on the subject. I posted all this, and I wanted to go through and do more research with all of these articles that I posted there. I don't want to play any of these videos because I don't want to get in trouble for copyright infringement or anything like that, so that's the reason why I don't even have music at the beginning or end of my videos like I did before. And I'm probably going to get rid of this background that I have here because that's not really my picture. I guess the Article 13 over in Europe is going to get rid of our ability to use pictures like they do with videos for copyright purposes, so I'm trying to make an effort to come up with my own content 100%. That way nobody can say it's theirs, it's just mine. But that, like I said, was a note that I took back in 2014 when I first started reading into climate change. I believe I've got one already out on climate change that's at a later date. This is like the earliest note that I took back when I first started doing research. So that's what I knew at that time, and I'll check and see if I've got that old video, and if I don't, I'll make another one updating more updates for this. But like I said, this is from way back in December, or in 2014, sorry. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share, give a thumbs up, give feedback. We love all feedback's welcome. Thank you for watching.